The Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show is sponsored by Accunet Mortgage, an equal housing lender, NMLS ID 255368, and Accunet Realty Advisors, which is a separate company from but still affiliated with Accunet Mortgage.
Putting a roof over your head without the headache. Get answers to all of your home buying questions. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And our Sunday best to you. Good morning and welcome to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. I'm Steve Kettler, along with Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors owner Brian Wickert and licensed millennial loan consultant David Wickert. As always, if you have a question or a comment, you can call it in or text it in on the Accunet Mortgage talk and text line. The number's 414-799-1620. So some good news for anybody that's divorced and paying alimony and may want to buy or refinance a home?
Yes, this is a long overdue improvement in mortgage lending. But you know, I did a little research this morning just because, you know, I'm kind of nerdy like that. And so before we get to that news, I want to just give you the state of marriage and divorce, because before you get divorced, you have to get married. So my first quiz question this morning on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show is, David and Steve, take a guess, just off the top of your head. Oh, I'm going to give you multiple choice. The number of marriages in Wisconsin per year. I asked your mother this morning, David, before she left the house for church, and she said 2,000. Well, she was way off. All right, so your choices are 41,000, 15,000, 29,900, or 32,000. All right, David, your guess?
32,000.
Steve?
I'm going to go with the 32 as well.
Huh, how transparent was I? Well, the answer is 32,385. All right. And 41,000 was how many marriages there were in Wisconsin in 1980. 15,000 was the number of marriages from 1930. Okay.
Yeah.
29,900, we dipped below 30 in 2010, probably because of the Great Recession. And now we're bouncing in the low 30s, 32,000. All right. So that means just under 65,000 individuals took the marriage plunge, because it takes two people to get married.
Mm-hmm.
So that's almost a Lambeau field full of people, right? It's like 74,000 or something like that. It turns out then that the people who measure these things, which, by the way, is the Wisconsin Department of Health Services at the state level, and my favorite on the federal level, the Center for Disease Control. Measures both marriages and divorces. Okay.
Insanity required, yes.
Okay, there you go. So it turns out they measure this thing called the marriage rate. And in Wisconsin, we have 5.6 marriages per 1,000 population per year. That's down from a peak of 8.7 when your mother and I got married back in the 80s. That was the peak. And we have, according to the Wisconsin Health Services, been lower than the national average for over 90 years. Because the national average, so remember, we're at 5.6 right now. The national average is 6.9. All right, a couple of other fun facts before we get to the news related to mortgages, but I just couldn't resist. Median age for a person getting married is last year 27.6 years old. That's up from 21.6 in 1960. All right, how many? So there's 64,700 people got married in Wisconsin. How many people got married for the fourth time or more?
Oh, man.
And what do we call those people?
Serial weddingers?
Optimists.
Got it.
Optimists. All right.
I'm going to say 1,000 people.
1,000. 614 individuals got married for the fourth time. 10 of those folks were over the age of 75. All right. That is all I've got. Number of divorces. Now let's tie this into our real topic here. The number of divorces was just under 15,000. That's 2.6 divorces per 1,000 total population. And that is also below the national average of 3.2. If you do the math, that means we have 2.2 marriages in our state for every divorce. Okay, so there's your fun facts on divorce and marriage. So why does this all matter? Divorce and mortgage lending. It's because we always measure a person's debt-to-income ratio. How much of their gross income are we using up, or are they using up, to make their mortgage payment, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, car loans, student loans, and credit cards. David,
You say gross, and I'm just going to, for everyone out there, pre-tax. Before anything gets lopped off.
Correct. So the maximum debt-to-income ratio for a standard 30-year fixed rate is 45%. That means if you're making $10,000 a month gross before any taxes or deductions are taken out, you can afford, in the eyes of your typical mortgage lender, if you're making $10,000, you can afford monthly payments of $4,500. That's everything. If you have an alimony payment, which is, or child support, that's $4,000 a month, not uncommon for a high earner, you are instantly at a 40% debt-to-income ratio.
We count it like a car payment.
That's the problem. In the past, we've counted it as a car payment, and it's really a problem, right? Because you only have $500 in my example left for a house payment, and everything else. Can't do it. So now what Fannie Mae has announced just this week is we get to do something different. We're going to tell you what that is when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. And if you have a question or a comment, you can call us or text us on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line. That number is 414-799-1620.
Don't break the bank to get into a house. Back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
A fan, an owner, a commissioner, and now a Hall of Famer, Bud Selig. As Milwaukee's favorite son enters the hall, you can hear from those who know him best. Bob Uecker, Craig Counsell, Gorman Thomas, and many more, including Bud himself. It's all part of WTMJ Presents Bud Selig from Brewtown to Cooperstown. Don't miss it tonight from 7 to 9 right here on 620 WTMJ. Brian Wickert and David Wickert with us. It's the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show, and we have Joe in Oconomowoc who has a question. Go right ahead, Joe.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Hey, my question is, what is the least amount down? Got a 6% debt to income with a score just below 7, above 680. And do I have to go FHA? Is it possible to do something for around 5% down?
Well,
I don't want to dip into my 401k, and that's it. And I put every single dime in my retirement.
Right. You are so smart not to dip into your retirement. That's a really good idea. And money's cheap right now. Okay, so a couple of clarifying questions. The credit score is plenty good. The big question is going to be, are you a first-time home buyer or not?
No, I've owned 3 homes in the past.
Okay, and the other question, though, David wants to ask is, in the last 3 years is what I meant to say. Have you owned a home in the last 3 years?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not a first-time home buyer, but that's
over
okay.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, if you have not owned, the definition to a mortgage lender of whether you're a first-time home buyer is whether or not you've owned a home in the last 3 years. You kind of get to regain your first-time home buyer status. All right. So and are you a veteran?
About 6 months away from that, actually.
Well, yeah, and all that would do. All right, so we kind of, this is what we do every day, at Accunet Mortgage. We kind of go down the checklist. David, what's the income limit? How many people in your household, Joe?
Just 2.
2. All right, what's the income limit for?
$72,400.
And that's for first-time home buyer. What about for regular?
$83,260.
Okay, so do you earn gross more than $83,260 for your household?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that knocks you out of the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority, or WHEDA, loan program.
Okay.
So now we shift gears, and since you're not a first-time home buyer, what do you got, David?
It's a 5% down payment for someone who hasn't cleared that 3 years or is a first-time home buyer. It's a 5% down payment.
So if you were to actually wait until you get to the next 6 months and you regain your first-time home buyer status, then you could do 3% down on a regular Fannie Mae 30-year fixed-rate loan, and we would have that with or without monthly PMI. And if you don't want to wait that long, 5% is the minimum. And so the really cool thing we have, Joe, and I hope that you leave your number with Ben, and David can give you a call or one of our other loan consultants on Monday, is we can show you on your computer screen live. We use this easy technology called GoToMeeting, and we can show you, here's what 5% looks like with monthly PMI. Here's what 3.5% looks like on FHA.
Right.
Here's what 3% down looks like with or without monthly PMI. We can show you those numbers, explain them, talk them through, adjust them live on the spot. And I think that'll really help you decide, whether you want to wait or, buy now. So you kind of got two choices to wrap it up. 5% now or 3% down in 6 more months when you regain your first-time homebuyer status. Thanks for calling into the show and for listening, Joe. I hope we get to help you become a homeowner. All right. When we come back from this next break, Steve, we're going to finish up a couple of things on divorce, and then we're also going to be talking about the latest Case-Shiller Home Price Index appreciation numbers and just how short inventory is and all that when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Expert advice on buying a home. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Well, tomorrow's Major League Baseball trade deadline puts the Brewers front office in a position to make some tough decisions. In what direction might General Manager David Stearns be leaning? Matt Pauley puts on his own GM hat today at 12:07 during Wisconsin's Sports Weekend. Brian Wickert is with us, David Wickert is with us, and we were talking at the start of the show about some changes that affect people that may be divorced, have alimony payments, and it affects your ability to qualify for a mortgage because of the debt-to-income ratio.
Yeah, and so the great news for anybody who's divorced, and we were just talking to Joe, and I'd say that's probably the number one reason why people regain their first-time homebuyer status in a lot of cases. Maybe they did go through a divorce, and their ex-spouse got the house, and they've been renting for a couple of years. Now they're coming back into the market. So very common.
Or job change, from a new place.
Yeah, one state to the next or something like that. So you do have that ability to regain that first-time homebuyer status after 3 years. And just by the way, the other thing, David, make sure we talk to Joe about when we talk to him, our caller, is he said his credit score was maybe 680 or 700. There might be some things we can help him identify that he could do to boost his credit score before he actually goes out and gets a house under contract. We're kind of clever that way, too. All right, so back to the divorce topic. The good news is that now Fannie Mae has said, hey, we're going to just take that alimony you're paying and we're going to reduce your income before we do any debt-to-income calculations.
They're going to lop it off the top.
Lop it off, which is exactly, I think, how a person who's making those payments feels.
Okay.
Right? It's like, I don't get to use that money. It comes right out of my check in a lot of cases in Wisconsin.
Right.
And goes right to the ex-spouse. Mm-hmm. So it's like money you never had anyway. Comes right off the top. And so in our example we were talking about with a person that has $10,000 gross pre-tax income,
mm-hmm.
Now we get to qualify them just using $6,000. That means that they could have a payment of $2,700 a month for a house payment and all their cars. Now all of a sudden we can get them a loan.
Yeah.
The only weird thing is that in their announcement this week, Fannie Mae only used the word alimony. They did not use the word child support or separate maintenance. So we're not ready to roll this out, this coming week because it's like, most people end up paying child support.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just alimony, and then the other thing we call it in Wisconsin is separate maintenance. We don't even call it alimony. So headed in the right direction on that. A couple other quick notes about divorce financing, though, because we do get this a lot. If you're in the middle, you said you got a call this week of somebody that was in the middle of their divorce process.
Yeah, they had a court date set for September.
Okay.
They had already filed and were going through the proceedings.
So once you file your poison
you're sitting on the bench.
Okay, that's good.
So,
you're on the bench. Why? Because until you have a signed marital property settlement agreement, we don't know what your monthly obligations are going to be.
Could be zero, could be $5,000 a month.
That's right. So a lender is not willing to take that risk. That doesn't mean your divorce has to be final. It just means you already have to have the money part settled with your soon-to-be ex-spouse. So a signed marital property settlement agreement.
So I'm going to say that another way. We can help pre-divorce, or we can help post-divorce. If you are intra-divorce, during the middle of divorce, we are sitting on the sidelines with you.
That's right. If you're a person who's receiving support payments and you need to use that income to qualify, you have to show us that you've received those payments for at least 6 months for us to consider it to be stable. And we have to have the divorce decree that shows us it's going to continue for at least 3 years. I had a case a couple years ago where it was going to stop. Some portion of the maintenance was going to click down, I think it was, from X dollars a month to Y, and that was going to happen 2.5 years. Well, the ex-spouse felt so bad or was such a nice person that they went back to court and amended the divorce decree so that it would extend like at least 4 years.
Child support would be the same way. If you got a 16-year-old who turns age of majority within that 3-year period, can't use that child support because it's going to stop.
Correct. And lastly, if your ex-spouse is not, if you're the ex-spouse who is not getting the house, right? So I got divorced, and the divorce decree says that my ex-wife is keeping the house, and I want to go buy another one.
Yes.
Accunet mortgage lenders do not have to count the mortgage payment on the old house as long as the divorce decree makes the other ex-spouse responsible for that payment.
That doesn't mean that it can't hurt your credit, though. That, you might not be responsible in the eyes of a lender for your next house, but if your ex-spouse stops paying on it, it's still going to report on your credit report as being late.
And we have had that happen.
Yes.
And that can be a problem. So there's your tips on divorce and financing. We are your experts. We do it a lot. So if you're about to get divorced, and we can help you come up with a game plan that'll work. All right. When we come back after the news, we are going to talk about the Case-Shiller S&P Home Price Index. It just set a new record. We're going to talk about what this is all doing with the supply of homes, and we're even going to wrap in remodeling. All that when we come back.
Helping you find a place to call home. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Brian Wickert is with us. David Wickert is with us. And we're now up to some of the Case-Shiller home price appreciation numbers that just came out.
Yes, and that's the Case-Shiller S&P Home Price Index now, because they sold the index to Standard & Poor's. And I actually met Chip Case one time because he was on the board of directors of MGIC when I worked there a million years ago, and they were having people explain the mortgage business to him, and so he's a nice guy.
Okay.
Anyway, and anybody named Chip is kind of cool. Anyway, so the Case-Shiller Home Price Index measures home prices in the 20 major metropolitan areas, and it was up 5.7% in May from last year.
Hey, is Milwaukee in that list of 20?
No, David.
No, okay.
But Cleveland is. And so, you got to always keep in mind, that doesn't mean that home prices went up everywhere by 5.7. In fact, within the 20, I'm going to give you the quick rundown. Chicago was the least fastest appreciating at 3.3%. On the other end of the spectrum, yes, you guessed it, one of the areas where marijuana is legal, Seattle at 13.3%.
Whoa.
Then also in that kind of fastest appreciating, the other top two spots also
Denver.
Denver is at 7.9, Portland 8.9, Dallas, Texas 7.8, Detroit 7.6. And then in the next group of cities in the 6% price appreciation range, in descending order, we got Las Vegas, Tampa, San Diego, Charlotte, Boston. In the 5% club, Phoenix, Minneapolis, 5.7, Los Angeles, Atlanta, San Francisco, Miami, and then in the lower tier of 4% and under, we've got New York, Washington, D.C., Cleveland, Ohio, and Illinois. A couple of the surprising things, median home price in San Francisco,
a lot,
$1.25 million.
Holy cow.
That's expensive. I was surprised at how low the number was for New York, $486,000. Cleveland is only $150,000. I think in Milwaukee, I'll check when we do the numbers in September, here coming up for July home sales, but I think we're hovering around $220,000 in the Milwaukee area. Okay, so you got fast appreciation. Why is that? Because the supply of existing homes is lower than it has been in a long time. David, you were reading an article. What was the quote that you dug up?
They were saying there are 2 900-pound gorillas in the room.
I thought they were 800-pound gorillas.
They've been eating too many brats.
Okay, on bananas. So what are the
bananas?
Two,
the two groups are baby boomers and millennials.
Okay.
Baby boomers who are sticking around in their homes longer.
All right.
And millennials there's a lot of us who want to buy homes.
Okay, and we're seeing that for sure. We are sure seeing a big surge in millennials buying homes, first-time home buyers. And what did that Zillow economist have to say?
So the chief economist for Zillow said there are about as many homes for sale in the U.S. today as there were in 1994. But there are 63 million more people.
Wow.
Same number of homes, an entire generation more worth of people.
All right. That
63 million.
That is a stunning...
That's 23 years ago for those who are mathematicians.
Okay.
So
you were alive. That's
I was.
Yeah. Who's president then?
Mr. Clinton, William Jefferson Clinton.
Okay, William Jefferson Clinton.
Yes.
Packers. Oh, you told me that there was prior.
Right, he got traded 2 years prior. So
okay.
It's fine. Wickard Mortgage Company was
in full
kicking.
downswing.
Back when?
My first mortgage company.
Yeah.
So all this to say that then there was another study or article by, was it the Harvard Real Estate Research Institute or something?
Well, just emphasizing that because people aren't able to find homes, they're remodeling their own homes to the tune of $316 billion here in 2017.
That's a lot of remodeling. So, and I've actually talked to people who, hey, like, great, the home prices are up, but they don't want to sell their home because they're afraid of becoming homeless and not being able to find a house they want to buy.
Right.
So we got all kinds of forces conspiring, I guess, to help this remodeling. All right, so when we come back from this next break, we are going to talk about different ways to finance your remodeling when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show.
Getting you through the home buying process. Welcome back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Milwaukee Alderman Tony Zielinski says the city is sorely lacking true leadership. Could he have his eyes on a future mayoral run or perhaps even higher? Zielinski opens up with our John McCure during WTMJ Conversations. You can hear it all coming up at 11:07 this morning. So we're now to the point of the discussion turning to remortgaging for a remodel project here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show.
Yep, remodeling is becoming popular because of the shortage of inventory. So
if I can't find a place that I like, I'm already in a house that I liked enough to buy the first time. Maybe I just want to spruce it up a little bit.
That's right. So I got a call this week from a past customer, and they're hoping to remodel their bathroom in their 1970s ranch in Kewaskum. Okay. And so they're not adding to the footprint. They're just doing a remodel. They're hoping that the value will come in this time at $160,000, okay, $160,000. We tried refinancing them a couple of years ago, and it only came in at $148,000, so that didn't work out for them. So now they're hoping at $160,000, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah.
But check this out. She told me she got a quote from the first remodeler for just remodeling one bathroom. Are you ready? $28,000.
Is it a gold-plated bathroom?
Yeah, Donald Trump. It's got the Trump touch.
Something.
Well, she quickly realized that was not a good idea because, like, you're never going to get that value out. So she's not going with that guy, right?
Okay.
And they got to get that cost down. But here's what she or anybody else, I think, has to contemplate about how to finance that. And here are my suppositions. Number one, nobody really wants to have an adjustable rate mortgage. Right?
No.
Everybody in America, at least in Wisconsin and Chicago, the kind of Midwest where we lend, typically wants to have a fixed rate mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And what they'd really like to do is borrow all the money that they need on a fixed rate. Okay? But here are some of the challenges. And also what they'd really like to do, if it's a major remodeling project, is be able to borrow it on the value that the house is going to be worth after the remodeling project is done.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what they'd like to do. Mm-hmm. But you can't do that. Okay? So at best, if it's a super big remodeling project and you're expanding the footprint of your house, you might be able to get a construction loan, which is complicated because then you have to have your plans and specs done. Mm-hmm. You have to have a contract with the remodeler. And then you have to have a title company involved in dispersing the money for the lenders. So that's complicated. And I would say that is the minority of the situations. And so then the next thing that comes to mind to most people is, hey, I know, I'll get a home equity line of credit because I heard a radio ad from some bank saying, you want to remodel your house? Get a home equity line of credit.
Yeah.
But what are the problems with that, Dave? It is a
A variable rate.
A variable rate mortgage.
And higher.
Tied to prime.
Yes.
Right? Now, it's true that you can borrow, and most banks now are lending you up to 90% of the current value. I am not personally aware of any banks that are saying, hey, we'll make you a home equity line of credit based on the future value of your house after the remodel.
Because what if it never gets done?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And so you get your home equity line of credit. It's a variable rate tied to prime. Prime's at 4.25% right now.
Yes.
And expected to go up one more time in 2017 and 3 more times next year.
It's not going down.
But let's say you went and did that and you borrowed up to 90% of the value of your house. You're not going to be able to then convert that to a fixed rate loan later because in mortgage lending in America, if we pay off a balance on a home equity line of credit, and we're trying to do that with a 30-year fixed rate loan, the maximum we can lend you is 80. So you're stuck. By going out and using that home equity line of credit to finance your remodel, if you go and borrow more than 80% of the value of your home, you're going to be stuck with that thing. Mm-hmm. And you didn't mean to do that, probably. Okay? So the right technique is, A, call Accunet Mortgage and let us help you think through the best option. But in many, many cases, the best option is let us refinance you to that maximum of 80% of the current value of your home. Mm-hmm. I did this for a buddy of mine. Take you up to that maximum, lock in that rate for whatever you want, 15, 20, 23
For the most
years,
amount of money.
30 years, yeah, for the most amount of money. Let's get the biggest chunk we can, all on a fixed rate. Then, if that's not enough money to complete your remodel, then you get a home equity line of credit after for a smaller amount, okay? So that's kind of your basics on remodel. You got a comment?
Well, and I think the human thought is to say, well, I spent $20,000 to redo my kitchen. Instantly, my house is worth $20,000 more. Brian, why can't I just, pull that, now that my house is worth more, why can't I just pull that in with my first mortgage, and it's just not a dollar for dollar difference?
No, very rarely.
Close.
Not even.
Only if you maybe add square footage, a bedroom, or a bathroom. Because then you're in a new category.
Correct. Otherwise, it's just a nicer version of what you had, and you just don't pick up that much on a refinance appraisal for...
Because the appraiser on a refinance is only cared about the mechanics of the home, as opposed to a buyer who's just like, oh, wow, this kitchen is nice. I will pay more for this, maybe.
You might get a $10,000 bump for a condition or quality of the property.
Maybe.
But, it's hard. All right. When we come back, for our last segment of the show, I've got a story about couple buying a home and the documentation challenge that we're having for the down payment. We're going to share that with you when we come back.
Here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Getting you into the home of your dreams. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Brian Wickert is with us. David Wickert is with us. And we're now into documentation challenges and a rather interesting situation for one particular individual.
Yes, unfortunately, these folks, they're getting married. We've kind of had a rash of this, or a spate of it.
There's 32,000 people who are going to get married in Wisconsin this year.
And some of them are getting married and buying a house at the same time, which I think is very brave of them. In terms of
doubling down.
No, just in terms of a lot to get done. And so these people went to a big bank and got the pre-approval. It was not rock solid, because if they had come to us for the actual pre-approval, we would have started on this homework sooner. Okay? And so they're coming to us. We are going to save them like over $1,000 in closing costs and give them a 0.25% lower rate than they could get from the big bank.
That's
at
nice.
the same time.
That's nice.
Okay, but here's a challenge. 3 accounts were given to us. One was in the name of a Uniform Trust for Minors Act, an UTMA account. Okay,
that their parents set up for them.
Correct.
Okay.
And, so that the mother was still listed as the trustee,
right,
even though it's now, this person is definitely of age.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the other one was in a trust that was set up by the grandmother, so it said our borrower's name as trustee for the Humbada Trust,
mm-hmm,
which was in our borrower's name. But whenever you have money in a bank account that's titled in a trust, we have to get the trust agreement. Okay, so there's a level of hassle there.
We got to prove.
And so luckily they were able to find it because it was set up by Grandma, years ago.
Okay.
Actually, in 1999, the year that Accunet was born.
Okay.
18 years ago. And then there was a third account with some stock. Well, and the reason why we came across all this stuff, they needed that money. Mm-hmm. But, of course, then they need to get the money into one spot that they can use for the down payment. So what that creates for any mortgage lender, this is not unique to Accunet, is we start to see these deposits going into her bank account. One for $30,000. Here's another one for $40,000. Here's one for $15,000. Well, it's this money coming from these three other accounts into this one. All right, so when you see that as a mortgage lender, you have to prove where it came from, right? So it's like, no, we need to see a copy of that check, or we need to see the money coming out of your stock account and into your checking account. We have to verify and, get pictures, PDFs of both sides of that transaction.
Wait, so you're saying the devil is in the details?
I am saying the devil is in the details. So it's a little bit tedious when you're also trying to get married and, blah, blah, blah. But it's the kind of stuff that you have to do. So when you're buying a house, just know that any mortgage lender in America, including Accunet, is going to have to document where the money came from. It's just the way that the world is. And just be ready to provide the documentation necessary. We have some tips and tricks to try to minimize that. That's why it's important if you talk to us ahead of time and you get your rock-solid pre-approval, we can get some of this homework out of the way and also coach you on when and how to move the money.
This is the reason why when I'm talking or any loan consultant is talking to someone on the phone, if you're getting married, we talk about the rock-solid pre-approval. One talk track is to reduce stress.
Yes.
Let's do this homework ahead of time. Because if you called up today and said, I have an accepted offer on a house, first thing we'd say is congratulations. And the second thing we'd say is, as you just said, here's the list of documentation that we need. Well, we need it anyway. So while we're not under the gun, while you're not emotionally invested in this house, while you're not stressing about the inspection coming back or timing when you're going to move versus when you're going to get married, let's do that ahead of time so that there's not this graying of hairs while everything is happening all at once. So that's starting on second base when you get the accepted offer.
That's right, if not third base. Now, the other thing to say about weddings and buying a house and stuff is I've got a different young couple who got married. They actually put the pre-approval process on hold during their marriage, for which I applaud
one thing at a
them.
time.
That's right. Got married. Now they're coming back and saying, okay, we're ready to buy. Get their bank accounts. And guess what I see on there? A $16,530 deposit. Well, what is that?
Oh, wedding gifts.
Wedding gifts. Okay.
It's good to have friends.
That's dead money to us unless they can give us an image
of every check.
The cash is dead money, right? I cannot count that for the down payment.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to do in this particular case is the dad of the bride is willing to give a new gift to kind of replace that $16,000.
Sure.
And then after all the dust settles and they are in their new house, the couple will just gift $16,000 back to the dad.
Okay.
So that's how we're going to get around the dead money problem of the wedding gift. But again, had we talked to him about that, and it's all going to turn out okay, maybe we would have said, hey, make photocopies of all your wedding gift
Help
checks.
us help you reduce stress.
Right, if we would have had really needed that money.
Yeah.
So we're all about reducing stress and planning ahead. You can get started on your very own rock-solid pre-approval to buy. Or you know what, maybe it's a son, daughter, or granddaughter. Tell them to call Accunet. We are really in the business of trying to reduce stress and make things less complicated and more fun when it comes to getting a mortgage. Rates are still also really low, unexpectedly low. Great time to still click on the blue button, whether you're looking to refi, to remodel, maybe just get rid of your PMI, or a lot of people are shortening the number of years left to pay off their loan, save you a ton of interest. You'll find our phone number and the blue button at accunet.com. Thanks a lot, Steve.
You got it. We'll catch you again next Sunday on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. Straight ahead here, we'll check in with Colleen Bolin in the WTMJ Breaking News Center.
The preceding was a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the Accunet Mortgage and Realty show are solely that of the hosts or guests of Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors and not WTMJ Radio or Scripps Media Incorporated.